Welcome to Flip Your Lid with Kim Honeycutt. Kim is a psychotherapist and executive director of ICU Talks, a mental health speaking ministry. This is a podcast about how to flip your lid and learning how to reconnect to who you really are.
Hey everybody, welcome to Flip Your Lid. I got to tell y'all, I'm fangirling. I have with me John Lee, and I'm not exaggerating at all. He's been the most influential person in my life about therapy, as a person, how therapy has affected me, but also as being a therapist and a trauma recovery consultant. John has shaped my idea of self and helped me to help other people learn who they actually are and get the conditions off of them that so many of our childhoods place on us. So, John has been on Oprah numerous times. He's been on 2020, The View, CNN. I go on and on. He's author of many books, the best-selling book, The Flying Boy. The book that shaped me was his book called Growing Yourself Back Up, about emotional regression. So, John, I love you so much and welcome to my podcast.
God, thank you so much, Kim. Let's quit now.
Right. That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Thank you so much for saying that. I didn't really know that.
Oh, it's true. When I entered into the world of peer, and so y'all know, peer is a type of therapy that Dan Jones, exceptional man, and John Lee developed together. When I entered that, I had been sober for 9 or 10 years, but was not emotionally sober and was struggling pretty deeply with the eating disorder, and ended up with one of his prodigies, sidekicks, with Connie Burns, and she taught me about peer, and my life changed. Truly, truly changed. So much that I changed the name of my private practice to Peer In Centers, Peer In Psychotherapy Center, because it is about what peer is. So, John, before I ask you the guaranteed question that y'all know I'm going to ask, will you tell everybody what peer stands for?
It's an acronym, Kim, for Primary Emotional Energy Recovery.
Yeah.
And Dan and I did that for 28 years.
Wow.
Several cities, a couple of different countries.
Yeah.
And I retired that maybe 6 years ago, but it really became, after Dan passed away, I kept leading them for maybe 3 or 4 years.
Right.
But as I was aging, and it was really a team thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, after 28 years, I just can't get in the floor and get on anybody's back.
Right. And that's so different and changed things for me. And after I had experience with Connie Burns learning about peer therapy, and I, read, Growing Yourself Back Up and was getting into your work, well, I called you because I just wanted to leave a message on your voicemail saying thank you. That's all I wanted to do. And John, you answered the phone.
Because that's what I do.
Right, but I was like, John, I remember saying that, like, John, you've been on Oprah like 3 times. I don't even answer my phone. I'm a peon. Why are you answering your phone? And our friendship started there, and I'm so grateful for you. So,
oh, thank you.
Yeah, I am where I am, and you are a huge, huge part of that.
Thank you, Dawn. I'm glad it meant that to you.
It does. So let me ask you the first question, only guaranteed question on this podcast, and that is, tell me, what has flipped your lid, and what measures have you had to take to reconnect to your true self?
Well, there's about 1,000 things that have flipped my lid. Let's see, what was the main one? The main one. A beautiful woman left me, and when I asked her why she was leaving, she said, because I was the angriest man she'd ever known.
Wow.
Now, at that time, I was teaching in religious studies department and in the English department at UT and ACC. And so I didn't know what she meant by that. And I said the dumbest thing in the world, but it was also true. I said, I've never hit you. slapped you, pushed you, or shoved you.
Mm.
And to me, that's what I grew up with.
Right.
So that's what I thought real anger was.
Mm-hmm.
Now it turns out that what she really meant or could have meant is you're full of rage.
Right.
And you don't know it. And it comes out in all these underground various ways, shaming, blaming, demeaning, demoralizing, criticizing. Those were the things she was talking about.
Right.
And then I said, is there any other reason? And she said, yep, you're also the saddest man I've ever known.
Wow.
And I'm going, is that true? And I knew it was.
Right.
And I'd been in Jungian therapy, Freudian therapy, but after she departed, that's when I went to be with Dan Jones. And he was my therapist for maybe 6 months before we became co-founders of the Men's Center in Austin and the peer training program.
Right. Yeah.
So it was pain and confusion and sorrow that flipped my lid.
Yeah.
And then from there, I wrote The Flying Boy. Me and Robert Bly became friends and colleagues. And so I had to do a tremendous amount of emotional work, reconnecting with my body, reconnecting with emotions I didn't even know how to name, let alone feel.
Yeah.
And that began the trajectory that started 38 years ago. Oh my God, I'm so old.
It's hard to imagine, isn't it?
38 years.
Yeah. Talk about, if you can, a little bit the techniques like that Dan did that were different that actually allowed you to learn that the emotions were trapped in your body and how to successfully release them.
Well, one of the memories I have is that I told Dan in therapy that what she said is, and we started with the anger.
Yeah.
And so he kept trying to engage me in the way that both of us fought for those 20 years. But I would have none of it. I was still in my head. I said, Dan, all I want is for you to tell me how to get her back.
Right. Bottom line, right?
It.
Yeah.
If you can do that,
right.
I'll sit with you. And almost the second session for about 8 sessions, when I would start telling about my childhood or the physical abuse that I received from my father, the emotional incest from my mom, he would hand me a pillow and say, why don't you scream into it? Or stop hitting me. Don't hit me anymore. Or take this stack of pillows and pound. I'd go, hey, no way. Thank you.
Right.
And so finally I think it was the 9th or 10th session, he handed me a pillow again and I tapped it.
Right.
There. Are you satisfied? Is that good enough now?
Right. Is that good enough? Yeah.
And then the next session, he handed me the pillow and I pounded that thing and sobbed and screamed and yelled out pain that had been inside me for 30 years. And off to the races.
Yeah. And that became a daily practice, some type of anger release.
Yeah, I did that every day. And then also got in touch with my grief. So for 9 months to a year, it was an everyday process.
Right.
And then I got into some other body-centered therapy, bioenergetics, Gestalt back then. Anything to keep me, I did a lot of body work, anything that could possibly keep me out of my head.
Yeah. And you stated about emotional incest, and even a lot of people in this field aren't familiar with the term. If I remember correctly, Patricia Love coined the term, and I know you're friends with her.
Yeah.
Can you tell our audience, a lot of people have never heard of emotional incest?
Well, most people haven't, even therapists and
Right.
clinicians. Another term for it, though, it's just as hard to hear, is psychosexual incest.
I've not heard of that. That's interesting.
Where the parent, in my case, the mother, was putting energy into my little boy body, and later adolescent, later young man. He was also taking energy out of to feed her sad life and painful life. And so when I first started going to adult children of alcoholics, when I would hear somebody talk about actual incest or molestation, I wanted to come out of my skin because this was hitting such a nerve. But I really, really believed that I hadn't been.
Right.
And so my mom was in recovery, going to Al-Anon at this time. And so I confronted her and said, tell me, I can deal with it. I can heal it. Just tell me. And she said, I would tell you if that was so. Well, a month or two later, I picked up Pat Love's book, The Emotional Incest Syndrome, and I understood why I was so upset in those meetings.
Yeah, because the symptoms are the same for physical incest and emotional incest. Yeah.
See, the peer training program and my work has always been about bottom line, about energy.
Yeah.
Repressing it and expressing it appropriately. And so the emotional incest is really on an energetic level.
Right.
Now, it would get physical, like I'd have to give my mother massages for her migraines. I'd massage her feet. All this stuff that wasn't, nobody thought at the time that would have been sexual.
Right.
But it was an energy drain, an energy exchange with the little boy. This happened. I remember, Kim, one time I was teaching in Seattle, and this woman, I was teaching on this subject, and this woman said, after I took a pause, she said, my husband died in a battle, in war, a few years ago, but before he passed, we had a kid. And so she said, sometimes I would miss him so much that I'd go crawl in bed with my little boy and ask him to hold me.
Yeah.
And she said, I'm guessing from this talk that I shouldn't have done that. I said, no, you should have found an adult.
Right.
To comfort and care for you. And then you care for your little boy who's fatherless,
Right.
And she got it immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that's one of your many gifts, John, is that you can really help people to feel safe in that vulnerability, to admit something that is has such a depth as what you just said, and to know your background and the work you had to do to become a safe space for others. Yeah, it's a lot of work.
And I wasn't, I just didn't know it. I thought, well, I teach religious studies. I teach literature. I recite poetry to my students. I mean, I'm a catch.
Right, of course, right?
For a redneck from Alabama.
Right.
Teaches poetry, you know. But I would describe myself many times back then as a head on a stick. That from my neck down, couldn't feel a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the process of learning to connect physically without it becoming a threat.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And what do you think transpired that, like, how did you know that you were at a place that you can now teach what you had absorbed through Dan's therapeutic teachings and practices with you?
Well, because I taught for 10 years at Alabama, UT, and ACC, I knew that my calling was to be a teacher. I first thought I was going to seminary and was going to be a minister.
Right.
But by the time I got my undergraduate degree, I was convinced that I wanted to broaden my studies and my interests, and so I applied to teach take a graduate course, my master's at the University of Toronto, and I didn't get in, and so I went to Alabama, and there I got my master's in religious studies and American literature.
Right.
And so I forgot the question.
Just what was the bridge? How did it go from you and Dan working together and then co-leading all of this and creating a whole movement for people like me to at some point step into?
Well, I realized after about the 8th or 9th year teaching college that I just couldn't see myself doing this for 30 years, teaching the same courses over and over and over again. Yeah. And by this time, I'd been studying psychology thoroughly and philosophy and stuff. And so the first real bridge really was Dan and my work. Mm. And then one day I said to Dan, there's only one men's center in the United States.
Wow.
I want to create the second one.
Wow, that's true.
I asked him to be chairman of the board, and I was the director, and we had all these therapists who worked out of those offices and had 12-step meetings. Mm-hmm. And again, the 12-step stuff of adult children of alcoholics and Codependence Anonymous, non-AA, which I participated in all of them, given the addict I am. And so the center took off, and then the Flying Boy, because of Oprah to a large degree, and Robert Bly and John Bradshaw, they all supported it, and that's what really launched me. And so little by little, I was teaching 5 courses. Next semester, I dropped down to 4. The next semester, I dropped down to 3.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, I'm leaving college teaching behind.
Yeah. Yeah. And so still a teacher, right? Because I know you've taught me so much. And I just want to throw some things at you if you want to elaborate on things you've said to me or said when I was in a peer training with you that are life breathing, because it's allowed me to disconnect from lies and connect to essence. And so it's things, this is one that really changed me. You said unsolicited criticism is a form of rage. Listening to it is self-rage.
Right. Yeah, see, when Laurel left and I started looking at this, I came up with this list by looking at my behavior. Mm. And I identified 9 things that I did and people do today when they think they're telling somebody about their feelings of anger. Mm. And the list that I came up with many, many, many years ago and taught in peer was the following: shaming, blaming, demeaning, demoralizing, criticizing, preaching, teaching, judging, and analyzing.
Right.
And all of those was what I was doing in my relationships, thinking I'm just telling you how I feel.
Right, right.
And criticism, which was my dad's forte, and hated it so much. And when she went home with me one time to visit my family, we laughed and she said, John, your dad criticizes everything that comes out of your mouth. I said, yeah, I know. She said, now I know where you got it.
Oh.
I said, got what?
Right, right.
you criticize everything I say. I can't do it well enough. Can't do it.
Yeah.
I go, no, you got it. You're mistaken. That's not me. That's my dad.
Right.
But unsolicited criticism.
Mm-hmm.
Now, solicited criticism, totally healthy.
Right.
Kim, are you really going to wear that dress out tonight?
That is unsolicited.
Stab right in the gut for the heart.
Right.
I say, Kim, does this shirt look okay for where we're going tonight?
Mm-hmm.
So
yes. Yeah. Right.
I'm open. Tell
right.
me. I
Absolutely.
I want to look good.
Yeah. And the freedom of you teaching that to me, that when people would come up and say, looks like you've gained a few pounds, Kim, that I had a right to tell them that was their fear-based thought and it was unsolicited. Because otherwise I would absorb it, because I was such an emotionally regressed state, just like most women are when they're ashamed for how they look, or most people in general really are ashamed for how they look, that I couldn't have a voice. And that you taught me that part of being an adult meant that I would have choices. And that I could choose to have a voice and choose what was said to me and choose how I responded to it. And that I don't always do it well to this day, but just someone saying that so clearly to me, that is a path to freedom.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. In my first book on anger, Facing the Fire, there's a chapter that is called Saying No to Criticism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it really confused a lot of people, therapists and lay people. And I'd say, listen, this is really hurtful and painful. And when I first started lecturing on the circuit, I was so new. I mean, I've been teaching college, but this was a different thing. Somebody would come up to me after a lecture and say, or a workshop, and say, boy, that was one of the best talks, best workshops I've ever attended. But you never talked about, and I just take that.
Right.
I wouldn't take in what they said before.
Right, of course.
Once they said that, and launched that criticism, that's what I took away from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Finally, I just started looking at it and going, people will say things like, well, now I'm just telling you this because I love you. I remember somebody telling me that when I was writing a book. I said, wow, could you love me some other way?
Right.
This is very painful. I'm just telling you this for your own good.
Right, yeah.
I go, wow, this is what we learn to do.
Right.
I remember, Kim, I was teaching those 9 things to the Tennessee Association of Psychologists. And one guy was taking a note back, and he raised his hand and he said, so, Mr. Lee, what's your source? Where did you get these 9 things? And in my best Alabama fun drawl, I said, right here. He thought I'd gotten it out of a book, or a research paper.
Sure. It's true life experience.
Yeah. And so then I came up with a few more. Sabotage, manipulation, control, making somebody a butt of a joke where everybody's laughing except the one,
right.
Those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And really, all these things were just part of our culture.
Yeah.
And I just said, no. No.
Yeah.
I will not be criticized by you today, nor will I criticize anything you say or do unless you ask me feedback.
Right. It's such a normalized trauma that we absorb it and don't question it. Right. It's why your work is so vital.
Well, thank you.
And, I know you've done a lot of work with codependency as well. And I'm now, just to let you know, working on rewriting the 12 steps towards codependency differently, to take the shame out, to take out that is different for codependents as they work through what they're doing. The one thing you said that's helped me tremendously with codependency is you said, I can't help you if it hurts me.
Right. us codependent people are always confusing caretaking for caring for.
Right.
And I made this distinction out of my own experience with my own codependency, but also watching my mothers and other people around me. So the distinction is caretaking. I'm going to be tired. I'm going to be drained.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I may even be resentful.
Yes.
And ultimately, the person who I'm caretaking may be angry at me.
Right.
Caring for comes out of love, compassion, consideration, empathy, and it actually gives you energy, and nobody's angry.
Right. Yeah. It's so powerful.
We sure have those mixed up.
Absolutely. And even the word consideration, to understand, it means I'm going to consider me and you. If I'm just making it about your need, then a lot of times I do it to cover my own shame, to cover my own pain. And it is a trauma response.
Yep.
And we need to hear, especially people who are in the church, that you are allowed and need to consider yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's vital.
Yeah, this idea of self-care sure wasn't taught in my house.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And going back to your 9 initial words that were gave you clarity and life-giving, the whole idea of the preaching and how that's helped me understand that there's so many churches where the preaching style is everything you just described. It's shaming, it's blaming, it's using the very things that Christ came here to take away from us,
right,
to control and to manipulate.
Yep. Yeah, that I drew on my background of that. Growing up in the Christian church, and again, was going to go to seminary. And, I reflect and I think I would sit in church and just be shamed, demoralized, criticized. And I thought, no, that's not preaching. That's indoctrination. That's damning. That's hurtful. And yet, that's what I grew up with.
Yeah, and people are still in it, and so it's just normalized trauma that we experience it so much that we think it's the way.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, see, in my case, coming into a Baptist church, we got the idea that we were full of shame right from the get-go.
Yes.
You're born into sin, and I go, what did that little baby do? That was so simple.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But
yeah, I think you're you're ahead of your time. I mean, people are just now starting to consider the idea or re-examine, deconstruct the idea of original sin and the idea of a baby already being born. That, you've been pondering that and looking at it differently. And I think it's new for a lot of us because it's so comfortable. We're shamed so much that we go somewhere, especially those who have a history of trauma. If you go into a church, and this is now, again, your opportunity to get someone of authority to approve of you. And the shame is so familiar that we stay and think it's an opportunity to serve and to be told we're good enough.
Yeah. My girlfriend is a ecumenical Christian minister and psychotherapist. And she doesn't belong to a church, but she's an ordained minister, a real ordained minister, and master's in counseling psychology. And so she formed a board that was nonprofit, and the primary, some of her primary work was working with LGBTQ people and people way below the poverty line. Now, she worked with other people that were wealthy who funded that. But, it was like, now this is what I understand Christianity to be.
Yeah, amen.
No.
Yeah.
But that's not the kind that I grew up with.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad there's some change within that. And it's coming. But even in that goes to the title of your new book, which I think you named after me, Odd One Out. I think some of us resonate, especially those of us who are spending time in a 12-step program. There's a commonality of growing up feeling so different and feeling like the odd one out. And so I just have not, I haven't been able to devour this book yet, but I will. But just looking through the contents, John, and just would love to throw a few of them out. So if y'all want to go on Amazon and grab this book, it's already available. And there are topics in here like, are we afraid or anxious?
Uh-huh.
Designating the problem, let's get rid of it. Closure, a made-up relationship term.
Uh-huh.
The illusion and reality of abandonment. Why we can't be rejected. So I won't go any further. There are so many just heart-catching titles because it is about looking at things differently. So out of those about are we afraid, why we can't be rejected, or about the abandonment, can you grab hold of one of those to start off with and kind of help us understand your thinking?
I'll give you a thumbnail sketch of a couple of them.
All right.
We'll go into depth, but just one of the things that I've been doing, and I do not know, because I just mangle the English language, being from the South and Southern Appalachia. But one of the things that I built a career on is, first of all, I've always felt the odd one out, certainly in my family, in my school, and then having counseled people for 35 years and going to 12-step meetings, I realized, oh my God, nearly everybody feels like they're the black sheep or the odd one out, or they're on the outside looking in. But one of the things that I devoted a big chunk of my career to is looking at words that therapists, educated people, and lay people would use interchangeably as if they meant the same thing. And my first big ones that I wrote about and taught about was the difference between anger and rage.
Right.
That there's a clear demarcation between these two, but none of the anger books that was out made that distinction.
Right.
And when I'd make it to clinicians, they'd go, oh my God, this is so clear that these two states are different. So that was my first one. And the second one was the delineation between grieving and self-pity. So I wanted to make those clear distinctions. And I just kept doing that, and I put a bunch of those in this book.
Right.
And one of them was the differences between fear and anxiety. And I studied and I researched and read and thought about it and came up with the sense that fear is about the known. I'm afraid to fly. I'm afraid to go out of the house, and fear has an object. It's an object. And if you deal with that object, if you're afraid of dogs, then you don't go to the dog park.
Right.
But anxiety is this sense of, I don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
If anything is coming.
Right.
When is something, a lover or a job, gonna come? When am I gonna die? Well, what I realize is they don't have, anxiety doesn't have an object to pin it to.
Right.
And so I wanted to make that clear in that little essay that, are you afraid? Well, if you are, let's treat fear. But if you're anxious, let's treat that very differently than we will fear.
Does it
has a psychological, emotional remedy.
Yeah.
Anxiety, and I say this sparingly depending on what group I'm speaking to. Anxiety's remedy is a spiritual remedy.
Mm-hmm.
And I quote several theologians and teachers saying, how to treat anxiety. Thomas Merton, the Catholic monk mystic, says anxiety is a spiritual lacking, and must be treated that way, And Paul Tillich says the way to treat anxiety is to know that we are accepted.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
And then one of my things was about closure. I looked at that and I realized that everybody was saying, oh, I want to get closure on this relationship, or I want to get closure on this divorce, or I want to get closure on this move that I'm about to make. And I realized something in listening to all that over the years. I thought, closure. So I did a bunch of research, and what I found is that it was pretty much a new age psychological term that didn't exist before the 1940s.
Wow.
And wasn't spoken of in the 1950s at all. And then in the 60s and 70s, the idea of closure sort of came out. And so everybody was looking for it. And I said, in the books of John Steinbeck, the Joad family doesn't get closure. They just go to work.
Right.
And what I really try to point out in the essay, Kim, is that there's just no such thing. And how I got that too was based and founded in love. People would say, well, I want closure around this marriage. And what they really meant is I want to be done.
Right.
I don't want to feel anything.
Yeah, I want to feel better.
I want to feel better. And I go, then you're looking for something that doesn't exist if you really loved each other. Because one of my favorite teachers, friends, and poets, Robert Bly, he had a line, and this is where closure kind of came out of. He said, the people we love, we will always love.
Yeah, that's right. That's good.
See?
That's good.
And so to try to find closure around love was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. I
mean, I'm not going to seek closure for my high school sweetheart that I love.
Right.
I still love her.
Right.
And people, will be divorced and they go, oh, I finally got closure. But then 10 years later, I had all these dreams about her.
Wow, it's powerful. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's an onion. It's a process.
Yeah. And it's a different lens to help people look at. And so instead of looking for closure, is it more they're looking for self? Is it more they're looking to reconnect to self without that person?
Yeah. Great. Wonderfully said. Yep.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. So when I think about, you taught me that, children can be truly abandoned. And that as an adult, I cannot be abandoned, but I can feel abandoned.
Yeah.
And tying that into anxiety, tying that into understanding the lack of spirituality, the lack of acceptance. Can you put those together and speak into that?
Yeah, I came up with this at an adult children of alcoholics meeting back in the 80s. And somebody raised their hand and said, John, could you talk about abandonment? And I said, so why do you want me to talk about that? And she said, because I feel abandoned all the time.
Right.
And it just sort of popped out of my mouth. And I said, well, we can talk about it, but let me say this. Adults can't be abandoned. Oh, the audience just went crazy thinking, John, what are you saying?
Yeah.
And I said, no, wait a minute. let me finish. Adults can feel abandoned a lot and all the time. But no adult has ever been lost at the mall.
That's good.
And has to go to the security guard and say, find my mommy.
Right.
You get your car keys, you get in your car, and then you go see your mom.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
But we can feel it. And one of the things I just said to a client yesterday, I've been saying it for 35 years, that abandonment, having been abandoned, is one of the core foundations in which all this other trauma and fear and stuff springs out of, that it's going to happen again.
Right.
So I'm going to twist myself into a pretzel.
Right.
To make sure I don't feel that feeling again.
Yeah.
And then, sadly, one of the reasons why abandonment is so hard to work with is most people don't believe they were abandoned.
That's a good point. That's really true.
Most don't.
Yeah, that's true.
They'll say, oh, no, I wasn't abandoned. I mean, my mom and dad were at the house. And I said, I would say things like, so picture yourself in the crib. You're in extreme discomfort. Your mom and dad are really good, but your dad is out playing catch with the older brother. Mom is talking on the phone and cooking dinner. And you're crying in your crib for 3 whole minutes.
Right.
But in the crib, that feels like 3 whole hours.
Right.
When your girlfriend, boyfriend, lover, husband, or wife leaves you, you're back in the crib.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because now 3 days that they haven't called. Oh my God, 3 days?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't slept. I haven't eaten. Right, because you don't want that feeling of abandonment to emerge again. Right. But it happens so many times. And then the third caveat is the only person that can abandon an adult is yourself.
That's right.
Which I did on a regular basis.
Yes.
And then would project that onto these people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know.
Yeah. It's
I
just
abandon myself all the time.
Yeah, it's so profound because the idea of the self-abandonment, meaning that I'm going to go into behavior, I'm going to go into codependency, I'm going to go into being performative, I'm going to do something, no regard for self, to do something for you so you won't abandon me. Right, yeah, and the cycle that we get lost. And so there's no power if I'm not connected to myself, right? Then I'm living on the outside, and my day is dependent on what you do.
Yeah. That's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
My life, my days, everything depends on you.
Right. Yeah. And the difficulty and that's why I think so many people go into a codependency, and it doesn't always look the way we think it's going to. It's not just the Melody Beatty type expressed codependency. There's so much more to it.
Yeah. Well, as people said in the early days, be a melody and a melody Beatty and people. You know, bottom line is codependency can be terminal.
Yeah, it's really good.
Answer.
Yeah.
That you lose yourself, you lose your soul, you lose your purpose if you're not always helping somebody.
Yes.
You know, and eventually that codependency. I remember one time, Kim, at the Men's Center, this guy who had 36 years in AA. And he was like, you know, in town, he was Mr. AA.
Yes, I know that guy in theory. He's in Charlotte, too.
That's why I talk about that guy.
Yes, everybody knows that guy. Knows that. Yes.
So somehow or another, he attended a Codependence Anonymous meeting at the Men's Center. He's just checking it out. He'd heard about it. He thought it was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a 12-step program.
Yeah.
And we had about 12, 15 people in the meeting. And pretty much everybody shared. And finally, it came time to him. He said, listen, stopping drinking compared to this is a cakewalk.
That's well said and the truth.
It's a cakewalk.
Yeah.
It's a walk around the park.
Yeah.
He said, but this that you guys are talking about and sharing, oh my God. How does a guy like me that's old deal with that? Because y'all are talking about my life.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's so insightful. And, there are many that in our field that believe codependency is the basis, the primary for all addiction, that it starts there. And that somehow in the process, we have to go back. And thanks to Pete Walker, we now have the term fawning that, I'm going to do something for you as a child to avoid conflict, to please you so I can feel safe. That left untreated becomes a codependency. And because of that, it's been there so long, we don't even realize it's all part of the fabric of dysfunction.
Yeah. And see, to me, abandonment is the foundation for which codependency, alcoholism, pornography all spring out like branches on a tree.
Right.
But you don't really become a flaming codependent unless you've been abandoned.
Yes.
And you'll do anything, including giving yourself entirely away so that somebody won't abandon you.
Yeah, well said. And that abandonment as a child doesn't have to be being left at Harris Teeter.
That's right.
It is not that. It's having a need and being unseen. It is watching your family dynamics, absorbing that someone else's needs mean more than you, or that you thinking because mom's in bed depressed that you have to go do your homework so she can get out of bed. That children have childlike narcissism. We will believe that daddy drinks too much because of us.
Yep.
That's abandonment.
Yep, that's a total abandonment.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's sitting in the living room. He's already had 4 martinis.
Yeah.
And I come in and say, would you hold me? Let's go to bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's abandonment.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's abandonment.
Yeah. And the codependency is a lonely disease.
Yeah. And the sad part, I'm going to give you the sad part of it, is in the 80s when Codependence Anonymous really sprang up. Here in Austin, we probably had 30, 40 meetings going on codependence.
Wow.
In the 80s.
Right.
Then by the 90s, that gets cut down to 12, 15 meetings. And by the 2000s, now it's a joke on sitcoms. Yeah,
true.
And there might be 3 meetings in this metropolitan area for Codependence Anonymous.
Yeah, it's true.
The media and publishing says it's been done. You're a codependent. Now get over it and move on.
Wow.
And don't, John, for God's sakes, don't send me a book to publish by you in any way to do with codependency or men's work.
Wow.
Because we've published these books. They've sifted through the culture.
Right.
Now let's be done.
Wow. Wow. And the sadness of that's the core of so many people's pain, but it's not sellable or it's not recognized because it's within them too. And so they can't see that. Yeah. And so, in part of, with me rewriting the 12 Steps for Codependency and all I'm working on, learning that boundaries and limits are a huge part of a codependent or anyone's recovery. Yep. And so you gave me an understanding of boundaries years ago, and you told me a boundary that is not enforced is not a boundary, it's just an idea.
Yep. Yeah, good job. Good job.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
can you elaborate a little bit more on that, about that and the difference between a boundary and between a boundary and a limit?
Yeah. I say a boundary that can't be defended is not a boundary. It's just new age psychological recovery words.
Right. That's great.
People will say, I set a boundary with my mother all the time.
Yeah.
I go, what happens? And they'll say, she ignores it. And I say, that wasn't a boundary. You can't
That's
ignore
right.
a real boundary.
That's right.
And people will say, well, how do you do that? And I go, there's 1,000 ways to defend your boundary.
Mm.
So a boundary is, this is how close you can come to me.
Mm-hmm.
But in the books on boundaries, somehow or another, and this is another one of those things. What are boundaries? Oh, and what are limits? Oh, and they're not the same.
That's right.
So a boundary is, this is how close you can come to me spiritually, emotionally, physically, sexually, financially.
Mm-hmm.
A limit is how far I'll go along with you.
Wow, that's good.
And then you fill in the blank as to what that is.
Mm.
I got this distinction about this 2 or 3 decades ago. A woman called me up and said, John, I'm so angry at my son, I could kill him. I said, well, tell me what's happened. She said, he's an alcoholic and a drug addict. She said, I told him I would put him through the 2 best treatment centers in the country. And if that didn't do it, that was it.
Right.
And I said, okay, so how did that go? And why are you so mad at it? She said, because I put him through 3.
Of course.
And I got it right then. I said, so you're angry at him. You don't know what your limits really were. Mm-hmm. But you wanted him to know what.
That's right. That's good. That's good.
And this is kind of a truism. If you go past my limits, I'm gonna be angry at you.
Right.
See?
Right.
And that's what comes with that. So she puts her anger towards her son because she didn't know how to set proper limits.
Yeah.
And again, follow up with behavior.
Right.
And again, they're overlapping and similar, also very different.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also just puts light on that codependency doesn't mean to be, but when you are active in your codependency, it is a dishonest relationship. Yeah. Because you won't tell me what bothers you. You won't give me a true answer. Right. And that it becomes, it's a form of manipulation.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how I got to the limit thing too after that was I hadn't seen or talked to my dad for 10 years due to the alcoholism and stuff. And so finally he'd stopped drinking. He wasn't in recovery, but he dry drunk. But I thought I've got enough recovery and enough therapy and enough sense of self and strength. I'm going to go visit him. But before I went, I thought to myself, I asked myself the question, how long, John, do you think you could be with your dad before it got dysfunction? Mm-hmm. And I thought, I bet knowing my dad, but also knowing me, I think I can do 2 hours. That's my limit.
Right, that's right.
And so I drove over there. It's a 2-hour drive. And we sat and we talked for the first time in 10 years. Wow. And then I looked at my pocket watch and it had been 2 hours. And I said, well, Pop, I'm going to go. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going back home. And he said, why are you doing that? Why don't you spend the night? I said, no.
Yeah.
I said, I appreciate it, but I'm going to head on back home. He said, was it something I said? I said, no, something we didn't say. And I said, we had a pretty good visit, don't you think? He said, yeah, that's why I want you to stay. And I said, well, I got to go. I got to go. And I made about 4 or 5 trips that way. End of 2 hours, no matter how good it was going, my limit.
Yeah. Yeah, that is beautiful.
Most people, especially on the holidays, they stay with their family way beyond what they have limits.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm 26 years sober and been in the peer community for a lot of that time, and I'm at 3 hours with my family max, and I'm really okay with that. It works well for all of us, and even if it didn't work well for them, it works well for me.
That's right. Yeah. Now, Kim, that's the thing about one of the things about codependency and abandonment and this rage stuff. The language that I came up with that is centered around love, compassion, and self-care is the phrase that I ask myself many times a day, is the phrase or the question, does this work for me?
Wow, that's so good. Does this work for me?
Does this work for me?
Yeah.
And if the answer is, no, it doesn't work for me to go home this Christmas, then you don't go.
That's right. Yeah.
Because if it doesn't work for you and you go, you won't really be there.
That's right. And the extra work after that, right? The month it takes to come back to being self, right? The trauma response we go into.
What would be called an emotional hangover.
That's right. Very much emotional hangover. Yeah. So if anyone's listening and you just heard John's statement, and that's really hard to do, or certain situations impossible to do, then you are worthy of doing the effort around that. And whether you want to contact John to do one-on-one work with him, or mini intensive with him,
with you,
or with me, like whatever it is, that being able to say, does it work for me? That should not be such a profound statement, but it is. It really is. Yeah.
People will say, well, that sounds kind of selfish.
Yeah.
I go, no, it's kind of selfish. If I go home for Christmas and I stand over in a corner and somebody walks over to me and says, are you all right? Oh, yeah, which is a lie.
Right.
Manipulation.
Right.
Well, it looks like you're not quite really here.
Yeah.
Now that's selfish behavior.
Right. That's right.
To go someplace where people or family or community wants you to be, but you're only 1 foot in and 1 foot out. That's one of the most selfish things I can think of.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you just said, people need to be reminded of that regularly. Yeah. I wish we could take the word selfish out of the vocabulary. We don't use it correctly. Yeah. We just don't use it correctly. We think that anything about self is selfish. And so there are people who don't think that way, and they benefit from that. People who teach you that selfish to think about self, they are benefiting from you believing that selfishness involves any sense of self.
Right.
All right. And so I love what you just said. It's so awesome. John, I'm going to throw you on the hot seat. I know you're a top dog there, but I'm going to throw you in the hot seat and ask you a few questions. Whatever comes to mind first is your answer, right? Remember, you're the one that taught me that. So here we go. All right. When you hear the word vulnerable, what comes to mind?
Openness, fear, intimacy, connection, fear.
Fear, definitely, right? So good. I love it. Powerful words. What is your favorite movie?
Oh, brother, where art thou?
That's great.
I watched it like maybe 5 times.
What's your favorite line in that movie?
George Clooney. You've seen the movie, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
It's been a while, but yeah.
Yeah. So George Clooney's character is the quintessential vainest man on the planet.
Right.
So he has to have a special hair treatment for his hair.
Right, of course.
He only uses one kind. But he says it like 4 or 5 times in the movie. Like if somebody startles him and wakes him up because they got to run for something, first thing he always says is, "My hair." It just cracked me up.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. It's cute.
He would wear a hairnet, And
Right.
it's like, yeah, the law's coming and we possibly are going to go to prison, but my first concern
Through his hair.
is my hair.
That's adorable. All right. What is beside your nightstand? What's on your nightstand? What is on your nightstand?
Oh. A novel that I can't even think of the name of right now. I wasn't expecting that one. I'm reading, just generally speaking, I'm reading more literary novels and poetry than I am psychology and self-help.
Yeah.
So that's usually what's at my bedside.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. What surprises people the most about you?
Because I was on the road sometimes as much as 200 days a year for 28 years. People, when I'm speaking in public, I'm pretty gregarious, I hope humorous, and then when I get off the stage and they say, "Oh, wow, man, that was really, really good. We'd like to take you to dinner." And I go, "No, thank you." They go, "Why?" And I go, "Listen, I'm so introverted off the
Yeah.
that you just, no, I can't."
Yeah.
3 people are a party and I can't do parties. And yet on the stage,
oh, absolutely.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, the other one, which is really weird and it's kind of vain too, I guess, is when you write a lot of books like I have, most people, and this is true of all authors, not just me, most people think you're wealthy.
Oh, yeah.
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 And it's just not the case.
Not at all. It's a very difficult way to make money.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're not John Grisham or Stephen King, you don't live off your money.
Yeah.
You live off of doing therapy, going and giving lectures, workshops.
Yeah.
And that's been one thing. They go, "Oh man, all those books you've written, you must be really, really doing well." And I go, "Listen, I got to pay rent next month, and I'm not sure."
That's great. I love that. All right. What surprises you the most about you?
That at 70 years old, I feel this is probably the best period of my life.
Yeah, wow.
And my creativity.
Yeah.
And my faith in relationships. Because at 60, that's when I got my divorce 10 years ago, I thought it was over. I thought all that was over. That my career's beginning to wane. I'm getting older. I don't think I may not be ever in a relationship again, and that's okay.
Right.
But to find myself writing, resting, taking care of myself, and in pretty damn good health.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's all surprising.
Yeah, that's awesome.
See, the baby boomers, most of us are what was called duck and cover kids. You know that term?
No, but I like it.
Yeah, duck and cover. Baby boomers were taught to get under our desks in a nuclear missile crisis.
great.
It's a true story.
Great. That's brilliant.
And all baby boomers did it to some degree, depending on the school.
Right.
But would have drills.
Mm-hmm.
And they go, duck and cover.
That's adorable. That's adorable. All right.
And a nuclear missile's going to drop.
And then you're going to be fine as long as you're underneath the desk.
Yes. And so a lot of baby boomers, like myself, I never thought I'd reach 30.
Yeah. Based on that. That makes sense. And so many other reasons. Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right, last hot seat question is, if you could give yourself a different name, what would you name yourself?
Jack Knight.
Jack Knight. That was quick. You've thought about that before.
I've thought about it a lot.
Yeah.
I keep thinking, I've written a couple of novels now, but I keep thinking I'm going to write a mystery novel or detective novel.
Yeah, that's Jack Knight.
That's going to be his name. It's
Yeah.
Knight, K-N-I-G-H.
Yeah, I can visualize that. That's great. So one thing I really like about your name is that your middle name is Harold.
Yeah.
Right? And it's written in the sense of being a herald, being the messenger.
And Kim, I was so embarrassed about that until probably into my 40s that I would never tell anybody my middle name.
Huh.
Because the truth is my mom and dad were not very literate.
Mm-hmm.
So they meant to put Harold.
I didn't know that, John. That's fascinating.
And so because it was Herald,
Right.
or the Herald Angels, I didn't want anybody to know that my parents, that middle name down.
Mm-hmm.
And then somewhere in my 40s, people who did learn about it said, John, that's a really beautiful middle name.
It is.
And I finally, now over the last 10 years, I signed things, John Harold Lee.
Oh, that's great.
But my real name, to close, Johnny.
Johnny. Okay.
Harold Lee.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I never thought I looked like a Johnny.
Right. We're just going with John. Well, Johnny Harold Lee, you are amazing. Thank you for being a part of this. I'm just going to ask everybody to find you. Should you tell them your website real quick, or any other way they can get in touch with you, or any Instagram handle, whatever. I love for my people who are listening, the audience here, to tap into your wealth of knowledge.
JohnLeeBooks.com is the website.
Mm-hmm.
All my books and audio stuff is on Amazon and, Walmart and places. Yeah. So they're easy to find.
Yeah.
You won't find them in a bookstore much anymore, but JohnLeeBooks.com. And Kim, I can't thank you enough. This was such a relaxing conversation, and I really appreciate you having me and telling me about the work that you've been doing on yourself. Yeah. And I want you to, when you have time, if you would, send me your modification of the 12.
Oh, absolutely.
I'd really like to see that.
Yeah, I would love to see. I'd be honored for you to look at that and get some insight from you. That'd be great.
See what you've done with
Thank you, John. I appreciate that.
And thank you very, very much for having me. And, when you get in the mindset or mood to do it again, let me know.
Absolutely, I will. Thank you, John. To all of y'all, I'm sure you heard something today from my mentor, John Harold Lee, that flipped your lid. And I know you also heard something that helped you reconnect to who you really are. We'll see y'all next time.
Thank you for listening to Flip Your Lid with Kim Honeycutt. Please subscribe, rate, and share. You can find Kim on Facebook or Instagram @KBHoneycutt. To get an autographed copy of Kim's book, visit butyourmotherlovesyou.com. Remember, no matter what, treat yourself well today.